Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking a really fascinating piece of textual archaeology. We're digging into one single, short, but an incredibly powerful passage from ancient literature.
Right, one that has shaped centuries of thought on anticipating change and really the non-negotiable need for readiness.
Exactly. We are diving deep into Matthew chapter 24, specifically verses 37 through 44.
And, this passage is famous. It's often associated with these large-scale future events. But when you strip away all this historical and theological layers, what you find underneath is it's one of the most rigorous ancient frameworks for managing high-stakes uncertainty.
So like an instruction manual.
Pretty much. An instruction manual for operational readiness when you are absolutely certain an event is coming, but you are completely uncertain of its schedule.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today is to dissect the logic embedded in the three core metaphors used here.
Noah, the field workers, and the thief.
Right, to really understand why this text ends with this seemingly impossible command to stay awake.
It really is a challenge. It goes against our natural human tendency toward comfort, toward predictability.
It does.
And the core insight we're chasing today is this. The text argues that the failure to be ready, it's almost never because of malice or some overt distraction. It's a failure of awareness that's generated by comfort. And if we can get our heads around that dynamic, we can apply this blueprint to everything from personal finance to maintaining infrastructure integrity.
So we're treating this as pure crisis management theory.
It's the plan.
All right, let's start with the days of Noah, because this sets up the psychological danger just beautifully. The text says, "For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man."
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to imagine the people in Noah's time as, wicked or willfully ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
But the text doesn't focus on that. It focuses entirely on their mundane actions.
It does. It basically creates a taxonomy of what you could call routine blindness.
Routine blindness. I like that.
The passage lists what they were doing, right? Eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark.
Just normal life.
Exactly. Notice the verbs. These are not actions of chaos or depravity. They're the very definition of normalized, successful, long-term planning. Community maintenance.
Eating and drinking assumes there will be food tomorrow. Marrying implies generational security.
Precisely. They weren't fighting the status quo.
They were investing in it.
Yes, and that is the central danger. The risk was not that they were distracted by something obviously disruptive.
Right.
The danger was the total absorption in the immediate, the cyclical, the ordinary existence. And that blinded them to the existential risk Noah represented.
So they had perfected their current system so much that they couldn't even conceive of it ending.
Not just ending, but ending suddenly, irreversibly.
This resonates so strongly with modern ideas of corporate disruption.
Yeah.
You think of companies like Kodak or Blockbuster.
That's a perfect analogy.
Their systems weren't failing, were they? They were performing their routines exceptionally well.
Selling film, renting physical media.
Right up until the point where the entire foundation of that routine was just swept away by digital change. The internal metrics all signaled success.
But the external reality was catastrophic.
Yeah, the source material here argues that comfort, it acts like an anesthetic.
An anesthetic.
Yeah, all the activities that make you feel secure, the financial planning, the weekly routines, the 5-year organizational strategies, these can become the very mechanism that makes you functionally unaware of a systemic threat.
The text says they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away.
And the tragedy isn't the disaster itself. It's the total self-generated blindness to it.
So the takeaway from this first part is profound. The greatest inhibitor of vigilance isn't chaos. It's the smooth, unchallenged operation of the ordinary.
It forces you to ask a really uncomfortable question.
Which is, what signs are we normalizing today? What are the successful routines we are perfecting right now that might be blinding us to fundamental shifts in technology or ethics or the environment?
The text implies that the smoother the machine runs, the greater the potential for a catastrophic shock.
Because fewer and fewer external signals of risk can even penetrate the system.
Wow. Okay, that perfectly sets up the second metaphor, which delivers the immediate consequence of this blindness with, shocking precision. The scene shifts from the big picture, the macro,
The whole society.
to the microscopic, to individuals.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it illustrates the personalized, absolute nature of this transition. We get those famous lines.
2 men will be in the field, One will be taken and one left. Two women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and one left.
Okay, stop there. What do you notice?
Well, they're performing the exact same activity. They're literally working side by side.
Precisely. From every single external metric, those two individuals are indistinguishable.
They're like equally productive, equally busy.
They're sharing the labor, the environment, everything. And this just demolishes the idea that external effort or, being part of the same community guarantees readiness.
So the state of preparedness, or the lack of it, it's entirely internal.
Invisible.
But if they are both grinding corn right up to the very final second, how could one be ready and the other not? I mean, what separates them if it's not their external action?
That is the million-dollar question this passage forces us to confront, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that readiness isn't an action you perform at the moment of transition. It's a constant internal posture.
A posture.
In modern terms, we might call this having the system in order. Think about a team on a high-stakes project. Both workers are doing the same task, but one has rigorous version control, backup systems, documented process functional integrity.
While the other is just sort of relying on guesswork and temporary fixes.
Exactly. Externally, they're both producing results, but internally, one is resilient and one is brittle.
So the separation isn't based on who worked the hardest. It's about whose internal framework was sound.
And the consequence of being unprepared isn't just a missed opportunity. It is instantaneous, absolute separation from the community, from the shared labor you were just performing.
A complete, immediate divergence of fates.
It is the ultimate argument for integrity over appearance. You can't just look to your left or your right and get comfort from seeing your neighbor busy. Readiness is self-contained.
Which means you can't cram for this transition.
No time. If your framework isn't already sound, if your systems aren't in order, the suddenness of the event leaves zero time for correction.
That leads us straight to the great imperative of the passage, the conclusion from these two scenes.
Therefore, stay awake.
For you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. And this is where the thief analogy comes in and provides the logical key for why constant vigilance is required.
Yes. The thief metaphor, it shifts the focus from the nature of the event to the nature of the timing. The text lays out the logic so clearly.
If the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into.
That right there. That's the core engineering insight.
If you know the schedule, preparation is a finite, reactive task. You just set your alarm, you patrol for an hour, you secure the house specifically at 2 a.m., done.
But without that foreknowledge, when the time is truly, completely unknown, what do you have to do?
You have to assume the threat is always present.
Perpetually. The necessity for continuous readiness comes entirely from that combination. The certainty of the threat coupled with the absolute uncertainty of the timing.
And the text just hammers this home at the end. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect.
It actively removes any possibility of calculating the timeline.
Okay, but let's challenge this for a second. Is perpetual vigilance even psychologically possible? I mean, humans are designed to adapt, to habituate.
That's a fair question.
If we constantly live as if the thief is in the yard, we just burn out. How does this command square with the psychological need for rest or, the operational need to focus on the routine?
And that is the most important counter question. I think the passage addresses it, but indirectly. It doesn't demand panic. It demands readiness.
Okay, what's the difference?
Staying awake doesn't mean standing guard 24 hours a day with a flashlight. It means ensuring your defenses are automated, your systems are resilient, your internal affairs are in constant order.
So it shifts the burden from a temporary, intense effort
The cramming session.
to a sustainable, passive integrity, a resilient system.
Yes. So in our modern analogy, the master of the house doesn't have to stay up all night. He just has to make sure the locks are always maintained, the alarms are always functioning, and the valuables are secured every single moment, whether he's sleeping or awake.
The system itself needs to be inherently ready. It's like preparing for a zero-day cybersecurity threat. You can't predict when the new exploit will come. Your only defense is maintaining continuous patches and redundancy.
It's the absolute highest standard of proactive operational integrity. The risk isn't that you missed a sign, it's that your entire framework was inherently flawed before the transition even began.
And that's how this ancient wisdom translates directly into modern high-reliability organization principles.
Exactly. The focus is always on preventing catastrophic failure by maintaining an acute awareness of error and risk, even during normal, smooth operation.
So let's try and tie all three of these compelling insights together. So what does this all mean? How does this ancient blueprint for high-stakes uncertainty translate into a concrete framework for critical thinking and planning today?
Well, I think we can synthesize the message of Matthew 24 into a practical readiness framework. It's built on three interdependent elements, and each one counters a failure mode we saw in the text.
Okay, start with the first one. Countering the failure of the days of Noah.
I call that vigilance over mundanity. The failure of Noah's contemporaries was investing too heavily in the immediate cyclical returns, the eating, the marrying.
Right.
For us, this means dedicating a fixed percentage of resources, time, capital, attention, not to just maintaining current operations, but to scanning the horizon for disruptive systemic threats.
So a mandatory, non-negotiable budget line item for future awareness.
One that cannot be cannibalized by routine operational demands. You have to actively break your comfortable habits.
You're arguing against that psychological trap of successful routine? You need an active mechanism to check if the entire structure you're standing on is still sound.
Precisely. Which brings us to the second element, countering the failure of those field workers. This is mandating internal integrity.
Because external activity doesn't guarantee preparedness.
Exactly. So the focus has to shift from productivity metrics to structural resilience. We have to focus on the shadow work, the unseen preparation.
What does that look like in practice?
It means constantly auditing our foundational principles, our ethical solvency, the robustness of our systems, rather than just our immediate outputs. Preparation is revealed as a state of being in order, not a task you can just check off a list.
Which implies that true readiness is invisible to outsiders until the moment of crisis. It's the hidden reserves, the quality control baked into every step.
Correct. And that leads to the final piece, countering the failure of the master who didn't know the hour. We have proactive, perpetual posture.
Because the critical transitions, personal, organizational, systemic, they arrive at an hour you do not expect.
Which means reactive preparation is structurally impossible. It can't be done. The text requires a perpetual state of readiness. It forces us to integrate preparation into the flow of life, not treat it as a separate, scheduled task.
The only time to be ready is now.
The only time.
This shifts uncertainty from being a problem of intelligence like a lack of knowing the future, to being the condition that demands constant integrity.
Yes. The fact that the future is unknowable isn't some philosophical abstract. It is the practical driver for how we should allocate our resources and our attention today.
And that really is the brilliance of this short text.
It is. It manages your expectations perfectly. It doesn't promise you any control over the when or the what, but it asserts you have absolute control over the how.
How you maintain your readiness in the face of that inevitable, unscheduled transition.
That's it.
This has been a true deep dive into an essential piece of wisdom. We analyze the unawareness generated by the comfort of Noah's time, showing us the danger of a successful routine. We move to the instantaneous separation of the field workers, which underscores that deeply personal, internal nature of true readiness.
Right.
And finally, we saw how the necessity of constant vigilance, because of the thief's unpredictable timing, it mandates a proactive, perpetual posture.
And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you, the listener, as you navigate your week. If we accept the premise that the most significant and irreversible changes in life and history arrive precisely when we are most comfortably engaged in the routine, how should this knowledge that you cannot guess the hour fundamentally alter your financial resource allocation, your ethical conduct, and your priorities today?
Are you currently perfecting a routine that might be blinding you to the necessary preparation?
Something to think about.
Something to ponder deeply. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into readiness and the sudden reality of the unexpected.
Until next time, stay vigilant.